Your phone buzzes. You check the notification. It's a sea of red. Bloomberg is screaming market bloodbath, and your portfolio just lost $10,000 while you were eating lunch. That jolt of adrenaline? That's your ancient caveman brain telling you to run. But in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you why running could be the most expensive mistake you'll ever make. We're going to look at the monsters under the bed, the crashes of 2000 and 2008, and prove they aren't nearly as fast or as scary as the headlines want you to believe.
Just a note, this video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. All investing involves risk, so always consult a professional before making investment decisions, as we cannot take liability for any financial losses.
Before we dive into the data, I want you to ask yourself, what is your definition of a catastrophic crash? Losing money hurts. But in the markets, ups and downs are the heartbeat of the system. If the S&P 500 averages over 10% gain a year, what temporary loss are you willing to stomach to get there? 5%? 10%? The media uses the word crash like a blanket, but not all drops are created equal. In the last 30 years, there have really only been two truly catastrophic events where the S&P fell by more than 50%. The dot-com bubble in 2000 and the subprime housing loans crash in 2008. Everything else? Mostly false alarms or minor shocks. Even the COVID crash was over pretty quickly.
The term crash is actually a total misnomer. When we hear crash, we think of a car hitting a wall. Bang! It's over in a second. But in the big two, 2000 and 2008, the decline from peak to trough took about 18 months to work itself out. The decline was littered with lots of false signals, plateaus, and temporary rallies that caught the unwary. Think of it less like falling off a 20th floor balcony and more like a slow, painful elevator ride with stops on some floors. The pattern is almost always the same: a sharp slide, a plateau where it feels like things are stabilizing, and then a relentless move toward the bottom.
Because it's a slide and not a jump, observant investors often have more time than they think to react. Here is the part that most people miss. The crash itself isn't the most important part of the story. The recovery time is. Why did the recovery after 2008 feel like a rocket ship, while the 2000 dot-com recovery moved at a snail's pace? It comes down to something called demand pull theory.
After the year 2000, investors were disillusioned. They'd been burned by tech, but they had a place to run. Real estate was booming. Why go back to the equity house that just burned down when there was a shiny new house across the street called property? Real estate soaked up all the capital, leaving the S&P 500 starved of demand. It took 6 years to get back to even. Now look at 2008. The crash was scarier, but the recovery was faster. Why? Because there were no alternatives. Real estate was poisoned. It caused the crash. Bonds were paying near zero. Investors were effectively trapped. They had nowhere else to put their money but back into stocks. So let's apply that to today. If the market drops tomorrow, where does the money go? Real estate? Stagnant. High interest rates have chilled the market.
Bonds? Better, but still not beating historical stock averages. Crypto? Still a roller coaster. There isn't a massive demand pull waiting to snatch money away from the stock market right now. This is the big spoiler of this series. It's not recognizing the crash that's hard, it's recognizing a real crash versus a temporary shock like the COVID dip. Now, I want to bring in Pete, our resident skeptic, to keep me honest. Pete, what's the counter view here?
Thanks, Kate. Look, my big concern is that the past isn't always a perfect predictor. Today, we have apps like Robinhood and E-Trade. Millions of people can sell at the touch of a button. That could possibly turn a slow elevator into a free fall much faster than in 1987 or 2000. Plus, by the time you're sure it's a crash and not a 5% dip, you might have already lost a lot of your gains.
Pete makes a great point. Timing the market day to day is a fool's errand. But understanding the landscape of where money flows helps you stay calm when everyone else is hitting the panic button. Over the last 30 years, the S&P 500 has returned over 10% annually, even with all the crashes we just talked about. The only truly catastrophic mistake you could have made wasn't buying the dip. It was not being in the market at all. If you want to go deeper into the anatomy of these crashes, we've put together a full series. We've also summarized the first 30 videos of this series into a book available now on Amazon. It includes detailed charts and arguments to help you build an investor mindset. It's available on Amazon Print and Kindle ebook editions. Click on the link below. Don't let the headlines manage your money. Let knowledge do it. In our next video, we're doing a deep dive into the 2000 dot-com bust with charts you've probably never seen. I'll see you in the next session when we cover these crashes in more detail. Thanks, and see you there.